Hello. Good evening, and welcome to our Louise self-healing class. It's a very good day today at the center, though it's raining now, but it was really very peaceful. And one thing is sure, we're always happy to come up to see all of you on the call with us today. And for those viewing from Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, we're happy to have you all with us today. We'd like to start this class, You Can Heal Your Life, Louise Hay class, with an affirmative prayer. And I'd like to call on Celia. Hello, Celia, are you there?
Hello, James. Hello, everyone.
How are you doing, Celia?
I'm doing well today.
Good. I don't see you, though. Can you open?
Yes, I start the video.
All
yes.
right. Okay. Can you open us up with an affirmative prayer, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
I speak this word for all those attending and thinking about the self-healing class at 204 West 84th Street. There is one presence, and it is a presence without an absence. It is welcoming, it is indwelling, it is all-encompassing, and it is right here, right now. At the same time, it's manifesting each and every one individually with unique blessings, unique opportunities. Underlying it all is one principle of good, and for this principle, for this recognition of truth, all of us are gathered together in goodwill and unified in spirit. In this awareness, there is one mind. Each and every one is connected to this one mind. It is supportive, it is inspiring, it is ever unfolding, and it is demonstrating great good through this lesson right here and right now. Each and every one recognizes that there is that intrinsic goodness operating, inspiring, giving life, affirming life, bringing joy, bringing prosperity and good outcomes of every kind through the recognition that there is one good, the recognition that there is one source. And in this awareness, everything that expresses at this gathering shouts out in love, shouts out in truth, shouts out in the awareness of self-awareness, of self-healing, of self-centeredness, of the inner word I am being expressed at this moment. So in this awareness, we move forth in a consciousness of joy, a consciousness of infinite possibility, and the recognition that the good is unfolding right here and right now by means of us, that the one presence that we often look up to or depend upon is within us, ever supporting each and every one as needed. I now release this word unto the law of right action, the law of harmony and peace demonstrates the truth of this word, and so it is.
Street. Before we go into what we have for you today, our lesson, I'd like to remind everyone that we have a class that started this week. It's the Principles of Successful Living. And the introductory class was really very interesting. There are so many key concepts and principles that were taught the first day. And we encourage everyone listening to register for the class. It's $130. And don't worry, you don't miss anything. I know the pastors, the reverends teaching the class will do a recap of the first week's class, the second day. And if you want to register, call the center at 929-620-3040. Send an email and request to talk to me, and I'll register you for your class. Then we have a Sunday class on Sunday, 10:45 a.m., and also to remind everyone that it's at 10:45 a.m., and it's the same Zoom links that we're using for today that we'll use for Sunday. And I personally am looking forward to the lesson because it's entitled Going from Good to Great. And that is something I would imagine that any living soul will want to listen to, a lesson, a talk that any living soul will want to listen to. So let's make it a date on Sunday, 10:45 a.m. And we are doing a lot of things at the center now. And every Tuesday we gather to discuss how to move the center forward using the integral growth model. And so many things are happening, and we are working towards thriving, and we're sure would achieve that goal. As part of the offshoots of that meeting, we came up with a big, hairy, audacious goal, which is something we are constantly meeting and working towards. So if you'd like to support what we are doing at the center, the link to our support button, it's also in the chat room to support what we are doing. For our class today, the title for the class is What to Do, Shout. And I'd like to invite Greg shortly, but before I invite him for the lesson, I'd like to read some points of our philosophy, some points of my philosophy by Louise. We are each responsible for all our experiences. Every thought we think is creating our future. The point of power is always in the present moment. Everyone suffers from self-hatred and guilt. The bottom line for everyone is, I am not good enough. It's only a thought, and a thought can be changed. We create every so-called illness in our body. Resentment, criticism, and guilt are the most damaging patterns. Releasing resentment will dissolve even cancer. We must release the past and forgive everyone. We must be willing to begin to learn to love ourselves. Self-approval and self-acceptance in the noun are keys to positive changes. When we really love ourselves, everything in our life works. I'd like to now invite Dr. Greg for the lesson today, entitled What We Do, Shouts. Dr. Greg.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to First Center for Spiritual Living. I have to welcome not just the people I see on the Zoom call. I'm aware now more than ever that because of all the emails and messages that we're getting, that we have an audience that's been growing on Instagram and Facebook Live and YouTube. Last week it was over 200 people watching this very same class, so that's quite humbling and quite remarkable, really. I'm really thrilled with the Louise Hay class. It's always been my thing. It brought me into the ministry. It brings everybody it's kind of like the main entry point. So welcome everybody to our Zoom class at First Center for Spiritual Living. It's a self-healing class. I see that we have a lot of new callers. I've been told, again, the numbers are swelling even as I speak. For more interaction, I need to be reminded to say to people, if you like more interaction and you're watching us on YouTube or Instagram, Facebook, if you shoot us a text message now, Jimmy or Anthony or one of our techs can send you an invite into the Zoom. If you do that, you're able to share afterwards, and we always have a gathering afterwards where people can share their experiences if they want to, or they can simply listen. The other thing to do, if you happen to be one of the folks that are watching it tonight or tomorrow during the week, still send us a message, and then we can send you an email. We also will be able to include you in our weekly e-letter. Sometimes it's filled with spiritual gems. It always has current information. So I've been teaching this class, a version of this, probably every week for at least 25 years, going back to, I think the book came out in 84, and I was teaching it just about as soon as it appeared in all the centers 2 years later. At this point at our center, we have over 52 lessons, one for every week of the year. Tonight's lesson has to do a little bit with meditation, a little bit about power. It's had a couple titles as it's evolved over time. I think we borrow a little bit from Ralph Waldo Emerson, which is what you do, speak so loudly I can't hear a word you say. What you do in consciousness shouts, and I think that was this week's title. The lesson to me is very simple, but then again with Louise Hay, she often said or was quoted as saying it's all very simple. So let's go with that idea and know that it's true. What has seemed hard, we will begin to think of as we get into this teaching more and more. What has been hard for us, we will begin to think of as simple, and we'll start to know that we have the power to impact and heal our life and our circumstances. So I'll be sharing a few ideas and interacting with some of you, and we'll do some of it together as we always do after the lesson. Please again message us now if you want to be part of this particular Zoom, or if you're hearing us later in the day or this week, be sure to message the center so we can include you. And that's really the best way to experience us. So we're really grateful that you're a part of us, and you can listen to our lessons 24 hours a day on Facebook as well. For those of you who don't know anything about this particular center, First Center for Spiritual Living in New York, we are formerly the first church of religious science in New York. Our center was founded by Raymond Charles Barker, and he was at the time like the guy. When I was younger, they used to say he's the Pope of religious science. Not that we have any popes, but he was a colorful character, author, and really a pioneer in his own time. And after him, there was Dr. Stuart Grayson and Reverend Wade Atkinson and myself now. Our center has given instruction to many great teachers and what were modern metaphysicians and authors. It's inspired thousands of people over the past 7 decades. This class is a class of self-empowerment, and it's a class about self-healing. Louise Hay, who wrote the international bestseller, You Can Heal Your Life, was the founder of the Hay House Publishing, which turned out to be a very big deal. She published just about every New Thought author that I'm aware of in the past 20, 30 years. She to date has been our most famous practitioner and student, originating right here out of New York City. It was her case studies with people that she was working with as she was in training here in New York that became the foundation of her writings and her blue book and the book You Can Heal Your Life. The points of her philosophy, which Jimmy read to you, are in fact points of our philosophy. This is where it all began, right here with us. I'm sure many of you are here because of that book. I'm sure this extended audience, which is growing, are here because of her work. Her work really came out of our teaching, religious science, Ernest Holmes. And regarding Louise's work, I can personally attest to the healing that has taken place because of her work. The work that she did impacted communities of all kinds, notably the gay community, the elderly, people working with AIDS, people who were confronted with what was thought to be incurable conditions in the mid-'80s. Again, the Hay House Publishing Company provided a place for all kinds of wonderful authors to launch their work, authors that might not have found a place to publish them at the time, where all kinds of possibilities of healing took place because of what Louise constructed. I'm inspired by what she did and the impact that she had with that book, You Can Heal Your Life. I have been teaching her material again since, my notes say 1986, in hospitals, in spiritual centers, in churches, recovery centers, all over. I've personally witnessed healing of people that, in ways I can't even describe, in consciousness and physical healings. And I'm very grateful I'm able to keep her timeless message alive here in New York, where it all began. So tonight, we read from the beginning of the book, where it says points of my philosophy. Jimmy just went over most of it. I've oftentimes thought over the years, if I were like on an island with one book or one page from one book, it would be the single page in the beginning of the book entitled Points of My Philosophy. Because really, it's a list. It's a list of things to remind yourself of that can save you a tremendous amount of anguish when you forget the truth. And we all forget the truth. And when we forget the truth, when we move away from our spiritual practice, and when we move away from the classes, and we're in that world where it's reaction and action and reaction, and I say, we're lost somewhat in space. That one page has got all the grounding elements that you need to bring yourself back, if you could put it all on one page. All of these ideas are so brilliant, and those of us who are in religious science will say, well, my goodness, those are religious science ideas. And of course, you would be correct. Louise learned religious science, and she learned it very well. She had a unique way of presenting religious science, and she was ahead of her time because she found the language to meet a world that was waiting for her. So religious science became immediately accessible to just about everybody. The first thought I'm going to amplify tonight, and I'm going to amplify a few of our ideas, is that we're each 100% responsible for all of our experiences. And that's such an important idea. And I'm going to tell you straight up, when I was a younger person, I didn't like that idea. I would feel a sense of blame or shame every time I heard it. Have you ever felt like you were to blame for something or for things that were happening in your life? And have you ever lived with a sense of shame that's kind of like unexplained? Back in those days, I was probably a bit codependent, like I'm needing you to say I'm okay or approve of me and all of that. I hadn't yet evolved to the point where I know that what you think of me is none of my business. There was a time, believe it or not, where everything everybody said mattered. And I would take everything personally. I had not yet encountered the book, The Four Agreements, where you learn to take nothing personally, right? And I might have thought during those times that I wasn't good enough in some way, smart enough, attractive enough, wasn't enough in some way, didn't measure up in some way. I'm sure a few of you might be able to relate to it, either here on the Zoom or in the extended call. Thank goodness, God, the universe, the powers to be, all of it, that I found my way into unity and religious science centers. Thank God I found my way into a Louise Hay class, and that was just all pure accident, or you might say God in action, because I needed a good mental house cleaning. And thank God I found myself in recovery too, because I needed a whole bunch of inventories and a mental house cleaning, not just one, but a continual one where you're like Socrates. Socrates commands us to know thyself, to become aware of what we're about and who we are and the stories that we're spinning. The inquiry is always within. I believe that's written on the Temple of Delphi that was ascribed to Socrates. Know yourself. So for me, I needed to develop a practice. I needed to transform my consciousness. And I didn't know all that then. I thought I was smart. I was smart. But there's smart in terms of having an intelligence and IQ, and there's another type of intelligence that was very much missing. I had in those days very much a consciousness of what is right and what is wrong, and I had a very well-developed sense of who is right and who is wrong. And I wielded the word should with abandon, meaning you should do this and this should happen and should and should and should and should. And Louise will invite us to understand in her book that that's probably the worst word we can possibly be using. There's no swear word worse than that word in her estimation. I was always thinking I knew what I should do, and I was thinking I knew what you should do too. And I didn't realize that all those patterns, all that judgment, and all that criticism was the problem. I didn't know that I was making my own world difficult and hellish. I'm quite sure I was impacting other people negatively, my family, my friends, because it's no fun to be around a person like that. You all know that, right? I say this today not with a sense of blame towards people who taught me, because all those rigid rules I picked up somewhere, obviously. And I say what I say today without any sense of shame. I had enough sense of shame when I was a kid. Thankfully, I don't have that anymore. I give everybody a pass today, meaning I'm all about forgiveness. In my family, one of my brothers said, the problem with Greg is he won't stay angry at anybody. And see, because he was wanting me to be part of a family fight, and I'm thinking, no, I have no time for that anymore. Okay, absolutely no time. It's a Christian principle. You forgive, 70 times 70, you keep forgiving. You love yourself, you keep forgiving yourself, and you forgive everybody. So I give everybody a pass today. From Louise Hay, I know everyone's doing the best they can with the consciousness they have. Plain and simple. We learn this here. We learn another adage here, perfect place. Everybody's in the perfect place at the perfect time and all of the time. So my judgment of anybody is a complete waste of time, and it's a luxury I don't have anymore. It just isn't. As soon as I find myself going there, stop. So forgiveness is very much a fundamental Christian principle as well. As I said, we forgive ourselves, we forgive others. We look to forgive. We understand deeply and truly that everyone's doing the best they can, and everyone's evolving. Like, as I look back on my life, really there's been a lot of growth. And if each of you do the same thing, you know that you're not the same as you were probably 5 months ago, certainly 5 years ago, or 20 years ago. You've grown so much because you've had many lessons, and each of them have elevated you to a different and higher place. You can look out at the world and you can observe people with anger who always have a sense of injustice going on and warlike behavior. People that are full of rage. They're everywhere. You can see them. I can be grateful that that's not my reality and I don't come from that place. I could, it's easy enough to be reacting and angry at everything. As you get involved in this work and in self-healing, you learn to maintain this sense of connection with Source, and your consciousness expands, and this is really what Louise was all about, what she taught and what her tradition teaches, eventually there's not going to be a shred of blame left, at least not for you. And you're going to live in a rarefied world where Dr. Holmes talked about when he said, find me one person who's so redeemed from the bondage of self. Where all that bloated nothingness is not part of their mentality. Louise was really teaching the law of mind when she said we are each responsible for what happens to us. What she was doing was explaining to us that our life and our circumstances reflect the sum total of our knowing. It's our knowing, it's what we know and believe that's reflected everywhere. So it's our consciousness that creates, and you know, who you are is announced everywhere in the world. It plays out all over the place. It's a huge mistake to be talking about other people. It's very boring, and it's a mistake furthermore, because it'd be far more enlightened to talk about what you're creating and what you're creating people to be. Now that's an interesting discussion, because you're bringing it back upon you, the creator. So what you do speaks so loudly, nobody can hear a word you're saying. It's as though everything about us lives from the inside outside. I was told probably 30 years ago that we do our work in mind. What that really means is we do our work in consciousness. I was trained as a professional therapist to go help everybody, to do all the work out there. And as a kid, as a young Catholic kid, I was supposed to offer everything up and sacrifice. And we have a different idea here now. We know that we're okay. More than being okay, we know that we're fantastic and we're great and we're wonderful. And what people are doing and saying really isn't any of our concern. It isn't that we don't care. In fact, we care very much. But we understand that people are in the right place, the perfect place. And I can't rescue you, right? Even if I might want to, it would be a mistake. So this is a joyful teaching. It's about learning. And my notes go into, the thing that's interesting is when you don't have the insight that we have here, that we teach, maybe when you're unaware, perhaps when you're younger, you think that the world or life or people are doing things to you. Sometimes they call that a victim consciousness. The boss is unfair, life is unfair. What this group is unfair. And you think about, you have what I call today fairness issues. Your issues are all about what's fair. And here in this teaching, you learn that, my God, you're writing the script. You're creating the chapters of your own life. I sometimes play around and say, you're Shakespeare. You're writing the chapters, you're assigning the roles. Everybody's going to be the great white, knight or the savior or the clown. You're creating people to be whatever they are, right? No one else is responsible for your creations. You are. You can create me to be a bad guy or a good guy. You can create pastors to be, inspired. It's really always going to be about you and your creations. Regarding my past, your past, I would suggest, my notes from long ago said to me, I cannot beat myself up about my past. I know I spent a lot of time in trivial pursuits in my younger years. Think about all the conversations that you've had or still perhaps are having that are really beneath you, where you're talking about other people and what they're doing and what they're saying. Think about how much time you spend doing that or you've done. Think about all the times you've let what they've said, some hurtful remark, rent space in your head where you ruminate with it over and over again. Why do you do that? Why can't you dismiss it and know the truth about yourself? In those moments, we've let fear and negativity come in and steal our time. We've let it happen. No one's done it to us. We've allowed it to happen. Think about the times where you have virtually paralyzed yourself in worry about your future, about your jobs, about your prospects, about your love life. So the point in this class is to let you always know that there is another way. There is power for good at your disposal, and you can learn to use it. Because all these terrible states of consciousness can be definitely part of the past. You know, we can learn from our mistakes. We don't have to keep on the same loop, creating and creating from a place of brokenness. If you're connected with Source and you know who and what you are, you can break those patterns, you can neutralize those thoughts, and you can create from a place, an expanded place of freedom and self-knowledge. As you come to our classes week by week in our activities, you have an opportunity to get plugged in and to do the work. I remember for probably at least 20 years, maybe longer, that there wouldn't be a week where I wouldn't be a part of some class somewhere and some service somewhere, because I needed a lot of reminding. And I needed to do the work. I needed to stop the negativity. I needed to stop it in the name of love. I needed to see the good, the God. As you learn to develop your consciousness and understand how it really works, you'll be quickly amazed by the changes that will happen. There will be a quickening for any and all who start to engage in this course of study, in this practice. You'll realize that you're creating your whole life, moment by moment, hour by hour, thought by thought, and that everything is a reflection of your inner dialogue. Thus the question every week, what's the inner dialogue been like? Because that's the thing that's going to tell me what your next few days are going to be like. So the idea that we're each responsible for our lives takes on a whole new meaning the more you think about it. And I want to go on the record saying there's not a goodness or a badness to any of this. It's simply the way it works. We're talking about the law of mind. And here's a question. Are you willing, and I ask those of you who are on the call and the extended call who might hear this a month from now, are you willing to step up into another level or another dimension of life where you can create a world that works for you? Are you willing to begin consciously to use your power? Are you content living out the sad dramas of your past conditioning? Are you content living out some version of ain't it awful and poor me? I hope you're not, because you don't have to live that way. So back to Louise's point, I'm responsible for my life. Just think about that for a moment. Once you get over the shock of I'm responsible for my life, and I hope you're not feeling blamed, because that's never the intention. I'm responsible for my life, which would mean I can really change just about anything. One of the lines here, I don't know what comes next, she'll say, whatever is going on with you right now, it's only a thought you're having. So no, if you've got something you're worried about right now with your health, your wealth, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your employment, she would say, whatever you're ruminating about, obsessed about, it's only a thought you're having. And a thought can be changed. You have the power to change that thought. So stop doing it and change it. So that would squarely suggest this power exists for you to change your thinking about anything. And what I'm asking here always is a high calling. And I'm asking you to become a true metaphysician, to begin to become a real truth student, because this high calling is to become the guardian at the gate of your own consciousness. You know, you're really asked to do a lot because we're wanting you to practice it. We don't want you just to come in here for a hit on a Thursday or a Sunday. We're asking you to apply some of this. The quickest way for you to become a good truth student is to begin to practice it so you can see it working yourself. We're asking you here to take really good care of your thinking. And if you take really good care of your thinking, you're going to be learning to take really good care of you. Because you know that your thinking is creating. It's creating your life and your life experience. The author Florence Scovel Shinn, I believe, said first, learn to be the guardian at the gate. It's a very high calling. I really can't blame my life, as I think back on it, on anybody. I used to. If I'm blaming my life on my parents or I'm blaming my life on everybody else, I'm somewhat careless or ignorant. I don't know which. My life is about my perceptions, and my life is about my beliefs. It's never going to be about other people. If you're phrasing, I can't do it because of, anything you're thinking is you're making excuses because of something external, it's a mistake. So I'm pulling the whole darn world who listens up on that. Don't make your life about another person. You are caused your own experience. So we come back to that we're responsible for our own life experiences. Instead of talking about someone and labeling them in a negative way, it would be far more empowering for you to say, I'm creating Joe or Sandy to be a terrible person. I'm creating someone to be a screw up. I'm creating someone to be not good enough. I'm creating myself to be not good enough. It's time for us to own our own experience. Usually on Thursday night, I ask people, what's it been like being you this week? Because I'm wanting people to reflect upon the inner dialogue that they have, the inner dialogue that's creating their very lives. And if you're talking about other people a whole lot, it's kind of like you're missing the whole point. You're missing the whole idea. You came to Earth a few decades ago, this amazing creature full of life and energy and every good thing, pure potential to learn and grow and to express life. There's power for good in you that you can learn to use. It's available to you right now. You can use that power. When you're in connection, you can use it for healing and great good. You are using the power now, either constructively or destructively. A lot of people live in doom and gloom, you know that, and fear and insecurity, and they play out these tapes over and over and over again. And if that's what you're doing, it's okay. It's a loop. It's a bunch of old ideas that you're bringing into the present moment. And I'm here to tell you tonight that you can stop. You can make a decision, the power of decision. You can take a first step from a 12-step program and admit you have a problem and make a decision to stop. And once you make the decision, all the universe supports the next step. Your part is just to bring yourself back and keep coming back and staying plugged in. Raymond Charles Barker famously said, yesterday ended last night. It doesn't matter what you have been entertaining in terms of your thoughts, your thinking. You can stop it. You can change today. And so now maybe it's time to calm ourselves down a little and reflect on the idea of communion with self, a little bit of meditation, and be still for a second, just to reflect, to remember who you are. And as you understand that you're one with this one presence, this one life, you wake up to the fact that you are amazing. You say, oh my God, I'm awake, and I'm living in this thing. I'm awake in it, and it responds to me. Do you know how wonderful that is and how wonderful you are? You might tell yourself that. You might say to yourself, I am amazing, and look into the mirror. Say, I love, accept, and approve of you, and look into the mirror and connect with yourself. You don't need a mirror, but sometimes the mirror is a powerful experience. Tell yourself, I love, accept, and approve of myself exactly as I am. Be still for a second or two and reflect upon, instead of how great thou art, from a place of deeper connection, you can say to yourself, how great I am. Knowing that you're a spiritual being filled with life and intelligence. If you could do that a bit more often, you could get out of the spin zone. You could turn off the television and turn off all those thoughts that keep going over and over, those worry thoughts, and reflect upon the wonder of you and how wonderful your life is. And focus on the things that you have, the blessings, the gifts that you have, which are many, rather than what you don't have. And you can become determined to challenge yourself to be a bit more of a practitioner. But then, I mean, a person who practices seeing the God, the good. That's the practice until you actually experience it. The God, the good, the good, the God. And as you practice more and more, you develop the consciousness and the understanding that you live, you move, and you have your being in this divine energy. Again, if you have that consciousness where you know you live, move, and have your being in it, everything starts to change. Really, that's the great story. That's where freedom occurs. I hope many of you can take this in, where you can understand, I am as the universe created me, in the light, the love, and the glory. I'm whole and complete. And you can drop these lesser ideas. That's the greatest story. I live, move, and have my being in this life force that responds to me. How sweet it is. How sweet it is to understand this, to have the understanding that you live, move, and have your being in this, and know that it responds to you. Oh my goodness, if you knew that deeply and truly. When we're kids, we used to have to pray to a God we thought was above, and we were always trying to become better because we thought there was something wrong with us. We thought if we did some novena or some extra prayers or whatever, so develop a lot of sorrow and contrition, that maybe somehow we would be forgiven. All of that's nonsense. SINS, S-I-N, stands for self-imposed nonsense that was taught to us by people that meant well. Because many of us didn't feel adequate for so many years in so many ways. We didn't know that we were born beautiful, whole, complete. Most of us weren't taught that. How many of you were raised knowing that you are amazing and that you have unlimited talents and abilities to tap into? How many of you were raised to understand that and to know that the whole world is there for you? I mean, did you miss that part of your childhood? I think I did. So we come to class and we're grateful for our parents and we're grateful for the learning we got from the people who raised us. Everyone did the best they could. Louise said somewhere in the book, we were all on some levels victims of victims. And to summarize her point, the people who raised us were wonderful in so many ways, as you know. And they also passed on things to us that probably were not the most intelligent things in the world. We were given a lot of great gifts in our families, and then we were also given other things that maybe weren't so great. And those are the things that we call our blind spots, or are embedded in our belief system, or our agreements, that have a tendency to keep perpetuating our life drama. So these limiting ideas, one and all, we want to eliminate, we want to neutralize, because they cause our life to keep running amok until eventually we deal with them. In our healing practice, we know that all healing is self-healing. And we all know eventually that all the stuff that's coming to us is coming for us, so we can step up and evolve. So we understand that all the encounters and lessons are holy encounters, and all things are happening for the good. Let me see if there's anything else. This lesson was a part of a seminar, so this is probably a good time to break. The question I throw out every week, like this week, is about your conversation with the most wonderful person in the world. What's it been like this week? And is it all about positive expectancy, or is it something else? So I'll close now, and I will see you at the other side of the break in like 1 to 2 minutes. We'll play a short video. Thank you. There's the shadow. The flip side of that question of who I've come here to be is all those defeating thoughts and behaviors. It's great to say I've come here to express life in abundant, but if you're in a relationship where you're battling with somebody day after day, or if you're stifling your own creativity in some way because you're overdoing something, that doesn't make you a bad person at all, but it